Okay, today we're here with American Pacific Mining Corp. With CEO Warwick Smith, the managing director of exploration Eric Sanderholm, and Peter Mercer's joining as well. Warwick, take it away.
Yeah, thanks very much. Appreciate the time, gentlemen. I know most of you, but for those that I don't, my name is Warwick Smith. I am CEO of American Pacific. This is a company that we founded in March of 2018, thinking the gold market was about to turn, but yeah, I suppose it was better to be early than late. So there we are. Let me share my screen. Let me go on full screen mode. Okay, just confirming everybody can see that. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Good to go. Okay. So we are focused on high-grade assets in the Western US. Here's your forward-looking statement. For those who wish to review, they can do that. This is the share structure of the company. So to start off with, we've got just about sub $40 million market cap, and we have $15 million in cash. We started last year with $2.6 million in cash and 30% of the two main assets. So Palmer up in Alaska and Madison down in Montana. We owned 30% of both of those. We finished the year with $16 million in cash, 100% of both assets, and we only took 10.3% dilution. So I'll get to how we did that in a moment, but this is where we stand today. Just sub $40 million cap, 15 million in cash. Major shareholder is Michael Gentile. For those of you that don't know Michael, he's been one of the preeminent financiers of junior mining companies over the past few years. He has been an incredibly helpful shareholder for American Pacific. He went through a phase where he was one of the senior portfolio managers at Formula Growth in Montreal. He had three girls under the age of 3 and decided they'd go for a boy and ended up having twin girls. So at that point, decided that he would take some time off being a fund manager, but bring his institutional due diligence knowledge to junior mining, which he felt was the sort of most undervalued sector at the time. As I say, he's been an excellent shareholder for us, opened a lot of doors for us as we go along. We are fairly well institutionally owned. So Broma Asset Management, the Lundins, are a shareholder. Terra Capital, ASA Merck out of the US, Ixios, Palos, Kings Road Capital, etc., are all major shareholders of the company. Some notable things have happened since 2018 that I think are worth running through. One, in 2021, the Wall Street Journal Mining Index ranked us the #1 performing gold stock globally that year. Stock went from roughly 12 cents to $1.40, traded over $100 million on the CSE alone, much more down in the US. We actually ended up with an issue at one point where we had 71% US shareholders, so we had a big US shareholder base. I say that was an issue because we rely under the foreign private issuer rule. We course corrected that by doing an asset takeover of another company, which was mostly Canadian shareholders. So that sorted that out. We've also been nominated for numerous awards. S&P Global Platts has nominated us for Deal of the Year twice, a Rising Star Company, along with CEO of the Year. And then Mines and Money had nominated us for Collaboration of the Year. At the time, the collaboration was with a group called Dowa Mining and Metals. They own the largest smelter out of Japan. That was on the Alaskan project. So key takeaways to listen for in this presentation. We focus on high-grade assets in the Western US. Got a lot of exploration work that's been done to date. We are fully funded with $15 million in cash. I would say most companies our size have $2 or $3 million in cash at this point. There are a bunch of near-term catalysts, which I will touch on. Very high impact drilling is underway as we speak at Madison. We suspect that we're going to transact on the other major asset called Palmer. And we strongly believe in M&A in the space, and I'll touch on that as well as we go. Valuation is backstopped by both the cash, the 16.7 million ton VMS deposit up in Alaska, and the very high grade past producing mine down in Montana. This is the Madison mine. So this is a high-grade skarn at surface with a porphyry underneath. I like to play this because it just kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like and what it feels like when you're there. You're just off the highway in Montana. You can see the portal there off to the left. You've got power right to the project. It's certainly the sexiest project that we own at this time. So we acquired this in June of 2020. I'll just give a rough story as how we got to that point. Eric and I actually reviewed this in 2016, really liked it, went to negotiate on it. Somebody bought it before us. That group came in, they drilled into the porphyry in 2018. In March of 2019, they brought in Rio Tinto as a partner. Rio was going to spend up to 30 million US to earn 70% of the project. That was March. In May of 2019, a month and a half later, they halted from trading and announced they were becoming a psychedelics company focused on medical mushrooms. So we were able to swoop in, purchase the project, along with a partnership with Rio for $2.6 million in stock, for which we were nominated for Deal of the Year. We didn't win that year. We lost to Cleveland Cliffs, but they had done two $1 billion transactions. So we were certainly in very good company. The project has had $6.8 million US spent on it since 2019. Past production here, it's small scale past production. 2008 to 2012, there was 2.7 million pounds of copper that were produced, but it was produced between 20 and 35% copper. So incredibly high grades, 7,500 ounces of gold at 16.1 grams per ton gold. We're 48 kilometers away from the Butte mine. Butte is one of the largest porphyries in the world, produced 21 billion pounds of copper, 715 million ounces of silver, and almost 3 million ounces of gold. Here's the location. You can see the red star right there. Silver Star is close. Golden Sunlight is close. You're in this prolific porphyry belt that has a ton of fluid going through it. Oh. Apologies, guys. My computer is frozen up here on me. There we go. Let me go back. Good. So this is locally carried at some incredible grades. These are all 0 to 200 meters. This is all in the skarn near surface. So 30 meters at 25 grams per ton gold, including 11 meters of 41 grams per ton gold. If you look down at CO5-06 around the middle of the page, 61 meters of almost 7% copper, 8.5 meters of 40% copper, on and on. These are the type of grades that can really capture the attention of the market. We saw that in 2021 as we got in, we're doing some drilling that created an awful lot of excitement for this project. There's a big historical database here, 35,000 meters of historical drilling and from the mining operation, almost 18,000 meters of new diamond drilling, almost 15,000 samples in the database. There's underground development there. What we've done recently is taken a step back from drilling it and done all the IP, the mag, we've done a potassium survey, etc., just to really line it up to make sure we did all the work in advance of actually going and drilling for the porphyry. Nobody's drilled for the porphyry in quite some time, and this is our chance to step up and take these big shots with a full treasury, at gold trading at $3,400, copper just under $5. We think now is the time to take these shots and look to see if we can create some serious excitement with the project. So why would we do that? I mean, if you look at some of the comps, Hercules is a great comp. There was 300 drill holes into Hercules in advance of them drilling in to the porphyry, which I believe was 2023. At that time, they had about a $30 million market cap. They drilled in, hit the porphyry. Now, at that point, it moved up to about a $450 million market cap. So it can happen very quickly with this type of deep drilling with some success. When we look at the skarn itself, it compares nicely to the Fortitude deposit down in Nevada. Eric, who is on the call with me here, was the chief geo at Fortitude. First thing he said to me when we went underground is this looks just like Fortitude. In terms of size and scale, that's the one we like to compare to the most. Fortitude is a 2.5 million ounce deposit. It vectors down to 25 million ounces porphyry and 3 billion pounds of copper. So we like to use that as an analogy. That started off as a 200,000 ounce deposit. And then with some consistency of drilling and then getting down deeper, they were able to build that out to that 2.5 million ounces near surface. What you're seeing on the screen here is some of the target areas that we're drilling now. Drilling started about a week ago. Press release came out this morning after the weekend announcing that we are drilling. You can see the mine site footprint up in the red circle on the north of the page there. The other areas that you can see that are with the dotted lines are where we're drilling, are going to be drilling at this campaign. They're spots that have lots of gold at surface, very good IP, potassium, mag surveys that all match up, and areas that haven't been drilled, but areas that we think could be the porphyry. And I can let Eric get into that after I give this presentation. You guys are welcome to kind of bash that around with him and ask him what he's seeing and why he thinks these targets are so compelling. We can get into that. This is where one of the drill holes is going to be. This is the former producing Broadway mine. There's about 5 different older mines that are on the project. This was in production from the late 1800s to about 1950. They produced 144,000 ounces of gold out of oxides at 4.5 grams at surface. As soon as they got into the black rock, the sulfidic rock, they stopped. So we're now going to drill through that sulfidic rock and then down shooting for the porphyry. Where we're having a lot of our success in the Madison mine, where I showed you before where that red circle was, is within those sulfides, getting incredible grades out of that sulfidic material. We hope it is the same here. It is very close by. There's no geologic reason that it should not be. Here's a couple of the other targets that we're going after. Pork, Scarn Ridge, and Beast. Beast is slightly different. It's a relatively new target for us. A bunch of really high-grade banded veining at surface that runs up to 41 grams per ton gold. So we will trench those and then look to drill on that afterwards with success there. Scarn Ridge, you can see there's 16 grams gold, 17 grams gold at surface. That's another spot for us to drill. And then Pork, where there was an 80-gram sample taken at surface there. We'll be drilling that as well. Here's some of the previous drill results we put out along with some of the core from last year. Just under a meter there of 41 grams per ton gold. But you can see on the screen in this section here, you've got 27 meters of 4 grams gold, 12 meters of 8.5, another 12.34 meters at 10 grams per ton gold, 0.88 copper. You can get down to some higher grade copper numbers down here at the bottom. There's a longer run of 71 meters of 0.69 grams per ton gold and 0.5% copper. And it'll bring down to 5.4 meters of 3.7 grams gold and 2.35% copper. Like to put this one up here from our what we call the copper pot target. So again, just under a meter, but of 23% copper. And then you get down into that hole, and that's where that longer run that I mentioned was 75 meters of 0.98, down to there was that 0.6 meters of 23% copper. So locally can carry just some absolutely spectacular grades, but you're getting those good longer runs of about 1% copper as well. Here's the core from 2017 that drilled into the porphyry. This was down about 1,000 feet. This is the 4th mineralizing event, but you can see that that rock is hammered. So there's something happening below this that could be that 5th or 6th mineralizing event. And that's what we're going to drill down to this time. Try to create some excitement as we get into that and see if we can get into the pay portion of the porphyry. I know this is Eric's favorite slide, but I'll take it for now. So one of the interesting parts about this skarn is that all of the rock has the opportunity to run. So typically when you look at a jasperoid and you'd see that in somewhere like Nevada, that's just an indicator rock for you. Here, this is running 0.5 ounce per ton gold. The native copper, of course, is going to run well. And then you've got massive sulfide. That massive sulfide is dense. You can put a lot of tons in very quickly with it. There was an awful lot of it at Fortitude, but none of it ran. Here, this is where actually we're getting our best grades. So this is 0.67%, that's 0.67 ounce per ton gold and 11.2% copper. We drilled some great holes here. There's a 0.5 meter of 126 grams gold, 14 meters of 12.6 grams per ton gold, all in this massive sulfide. So that's part of what we'll be targeting in this campaign as well. We love this project. It's got the opportunity to be big. Really all the focus has just been on Madison, and now we're getting the opportunity to expand that out with a full treasury. It's a program that we're incredibly excited about. Now let me take you to Alaska. This is the Palmer project up in Alaska. We purchased this 2 years ago. I'm going to walk you through that transaction in 1 second. It's in Haines, Alaska. You've got a deep water port right there. We previously had been working this with a partner called DOA Mining and Metals, who we transacted with this year. They were there for the zinc concentrate. So I'll touch on that in a moment here to explain how that partnership came about and then how we dealt with it as well. So we purchased Constantine Metals little over 2.5 years ago. We paid $19 million in stock to become the minority owner of Palmer. The partnership with DOA Mining and Metals, largest smelter out of Japan. They do about $2 billion a year in revenue. Their interest in this project was the zinc concentrate. That's what they wanted. They had been funding it pretty aggressively. We spent over 24 million Canadian in exploration last year. I should say they spent over 24 million in exploration last year, 26.5 million the year before. We were operating it, so we were collecting a management fee. So we were paid roughly $4 million over the past 2 years in cash in terms of a management fee. At the end of last year, in November of last year, we announced that we were taking over 100% ownership of the Palmer project, plus being paid $10 million US, so $14 million Canadian, in exchange for giving DOA 50% option on the zinc concentrate when the project goes into production. So in 2.5 years, we started with 35% of Palmer. We end with 100% of Palmer and essentially being paid back in cash for what we put out in stock. This is why we believe in M&A in the space. We think there's a lot of great opportunities like this that are out there. There's a lot of great companies that are out there, or there's a lot of small companies out there with great assets that maybe don't have a lot of access to capital. While we have good access to capital and a team that can execute on these things, we're going to continue looking at M&A in this space. Now, our plan with Palmer is to transact on it. We've spoken to numerous groups. We think it's the smartest move for us that this ends up with a Alaskan-based company and has the opportunity to stand on its own. It will be somewhere in that $25 million worth of equity that will come back towards American Pacific. If that was to complete in relatively short order, that would give us the market cap in both cash and equity. Never mind Madison and the other projects that we own. Now, let me touch on Palmer briefly. There are 16 VMS showings on the project. Only 4 of them are in the resource. There's been $116 million US spent on the project by DOA. It is located in Haines, Alaska. So you have a multitude of mines around you. You've got Greens Creek, you've got Windy Craggy, you've got the AJ mine. You're in a position there where it is a very pregnant system surrounding you. Alaska has opened up significantly under Trump, as we have seen. If you look at companies like Trilogy is a great example. I think that was about a $40 million market cap. It's a $300 million market cap now. Alaska is getting a lot more excitement. There was a transaction today where Barrick sold half of Donlin Creek for $1 billion. So you're seeing Alaska get this new sort of real resurgence with less red tape. Palmer carries a lot of high grade as well. The mantra is high grade assets in the Western US. This certainly fits the bill. We drilled, and credit to Peter, who's on this as well. When we came and got involved, Peter had new geologic ideas, implemented them, and drilled the 5 best copper drill holes that have ever been drilled on the project. So 43.8 meters of 6.5% copper, 8.2% copper equivalent, 23.9 meters of 9% copper, 11% copper equivalent, on and on. So locally, it can carry some really fantastic grades. Updated resource came out in January of this year. So this was a combined 14 million ton VMS when we purchased it. When you combine them now, it's 16.7 million tons. The interesting part about that is 99% of the drilling was all infill. So typically you would expect to keep 75 to 80% of your ounces, but we've actually increased the number here, even with just infill drilling. So your choice of sort of between 3.3% copper equivalent or about 13% zinc equivalent. Again, great grades. I'll finish on this with Palmer. Our goal, as I mentioned, is to transact on it. We're in the midst of having those conversations. and looking to move that asset to a new home and take equity back from it, which would put us in an incredibly strong position, both cash-wise and equity-wise. We own a few assets in Nevada as well. Tuscarora kind of being the lead asset. It's actually the asset that we started the company on. It's the oldest epithermal system in the state of Nevada, incredibly high grade. Ziggurat, which is in between Kinross's Round Mountain and Newmont's Northumberland. Interesting project there. And then the Gooseberry mine, past producing silver gold mine just outside of Reno. We like all of these projects. If we had all the capital in the world, we would drill them all. But we want to be smart with what we're doing. So we're actually looking to JV these projects out, take equity back, hold a position, hold an NSR. That's the game plan on these. This is the team. You've heard a bit about me. Jonas Lang was formerly at Riverside Resources, a company that I helped found back in the day, was also at Maple Gold Mines. He's done over 20 joint ventures or strategic alliances with mid-tiers and majors. Incredibly helpful for me and somebody that's got a real depth of knowledge on that side, help us get out with those different projects. Peter Mercer, who is on the call here today, pains me to compliment him when he's here, but he's done a fantastic job for us. Really professionalized the organization up in Alaska, drilled the best drill holes that were ever drilled up there, and really put us in a good stead, developing that relationship with DOA while they were there. Did an excellent job in Alaska. Eric, who's on the call, former head of exploration in the Western U.S. for Newmont. He is our strategic advantage in the Western U.S. He was the one who was making the decisions for Newmont about what assets they should pick up. Obviously, they were looking for things that were 3 million ounces plus. We're looking at things that are 1 million ounces that can grow. And he's seen an awful lot of them. So he's been a tremendous help for me. And then Al Nesh, who's our CFO. And then our two independents, Ken Cunningham, who many of you will know, geologist based out of Reno, elder statesman on our board, excellent independent director, knows the vast majority of the projects in the Western U.S. quite like Eric. And then Ali Akimzadeh, who's been my partner for the little over 10 years now, on the venture capital side, former banker from Canaccord, really lends a lot of bench strength on that side for us. Key takeaways: fully funded, $15 million in cash, just a sub $40 million market cap. We're uniquely positioned in that we have an awful lot of work done to date, and then there's an awful lot of catalysts coming with high impact drilling down in Montana that could really change the course of this company for us. Transaction that we'd like to see get done on Palmer, and then future M&A as well. We've done well with M&A in the space, and we'd look to continue doing that as we go forward. I think I got that done fairly quickly. That might have been sub 15 minutes, but there we are.
Excellent. Who's got questions for Warwick? Nick, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Warwick. Got a question about the share price. I'm looking at the share chart, and it's, the first thing you do when you look at a company. The stock, I'm talking about the US over-the-counter symbol here because I just don't want to get involved with the differences in currencies. Anyway, so the share price peaked in 2022 at about $1 share. At the time, gold was about 1,800. And you fast forward to today, and you've got gold near 3,400, and now the share price is down to about 12 cents. So how can the share price have a performance of down nearly 90% while gold during the same period is up 90%?
That's a great question that I wish I could answer. I can do you one better. I mean, I think at that time we had about $3 million in cash, and we had 30% of Madison. I mean, if you look at the share charts of most of our peers, they all kind of remain the same. This has been a gold price environment, copper price environment, where you've got rising prices that hasn't filtered down to the juniors at all. We're starting to see it now with the majors. The majors have pristine balance sheets, are cash flowing incredibly well. And we're starting to see, and the feeling on our end is what we're starting to see is these companies are going to start taking out mid-tiers. Mid-tiers are going to want to start taking out juniors, and juniors are going to start combining. As you see those things begin to happen, we think the juniors are going to get a terrific run. It's been a frustrating time, for sure. But what we've done is kept our head down corporately and built to make sure that we have cash, that we have significant assets, and when the time is ready and the markets are better, that we can strike. We've shown the ability to be able to storytell, create excitement. We've shown the ability to be able to transact and move the company forward. And now we look forward to that translating into a better share price as we get better markets.
Thank you. One more question. So could you
Yeah.
please summarize again, what makes this next phase of drilling different than what has been done before?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the drilling that was done before was really focused around that Madison mine. That's where the mineralization is sort of best known. And so it was shallow, focused in one area. We've gone and done an awful lot of work to expand that out. This is 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers. There's a lot of room to put deposits in there. There's 5 previously producing mines within there that all have the opportunity to grow significantly and ideally come together. On top of that, no one's drilled for that porphyry since 2017. That's the big prize. If you can hit into that, that is where these companies become, $500-600 million market caps overnight. That's the shots that we're taking today. Those shots haven't been taken before.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Adrian?
Yeah, hi, Warwick.
Hey, Adrian, how are you?
I've got a few questions. I'll probably just ask one or two and then turn it over. First one, sorry, excuse me. First one, a simple one. The warrants you have, can you give us an idea of what the exercise prices are and what the dates are?
Yeah, I can. I can give you an idea. The warrants are at 30 cents and they expire. I'm going to give you roughly 6 months' time. That's when they expire.
Okay.
Last financing we did was at 20 cents for $4.5 million that had a warrant attached to it. So those are the ones. And that was done mid last year. So yeah, there's roughly 6 months left.
Yeah, okay. What is your budget on the Madison project for the next, say, 12 months or whatever?
Yeah, about $3.4 million Canadian for 2
Oh, okay. So you'll still have plenty of cash after
Correct.
that.
Yeah. So this year we'll spend roughly $7 million this year all in. And so that's compilation work down and sorry, that's over the next 12 months. That's not calendar. That's just my way my brain works. So that is compilation work up at Palmer, drilling down 2 phases of drilling down at Madison, G&A, everything all in, little less than 7 million Canadian.
Okay. And then my last one until maybe I'll jump back. Are you doing any work at the moment in Nevada? Are there any plans for work in Nevada? Not really.
We've got plans for Nevada, yes, but it doesn't involve our capital. It involves the capital of others. So
That's what I'm saying. You're not planning drilling it or anything yourself.
no, you got it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in discussions with a bunch of other groups and kind of working through that as we speak.
Okay.
A lot of interest in those projects. Look, if we had $50 million, we'd go after all of them. But you kind of got to pick your favorite child. So
Wasn't Anglo a partner on, how do you say, Tuscarora? Wasn't Anglo Gold a partner there?
No, very early on, Oceana Gold came in.
Oh,
Very early on, sank some holes and then pulled out of the US entirely at one point. So we ended up getting it back. That was 2019, I'll say. So it's been some time. Since then, when we picked up that project and when Oceana came in, we had, I think it was 24 claims, 490 some odd acres. We have Eric, correct me on this. It's 4,000 some odd acres now. The project's significantly larger than it was before. We've added to the north and the south. The south, there's an area called the Danny Boy Mine. We've picked that up as well. We've made the project significantly larger. We've drilled it ourselves a few years back. Again, it's a project we like, but we think we're smart to joint venture it out, let somebody else spend the money and retain a percentage.
okay. Just lastly, a comment, if I may. I mean, I think you're really smart to try and look for joint ventures and so on. So one of the things I look at the company, Warwick, to be honest, is the share count. And
Yeah.
that's not a pretty picture. I mean, if it were a stock price, it would be a fabulous picture. But if it's a share count, it's not so good. So
Yeah, listen, I'd prefer if the share count was 40 million, not 200. With 15 million in cash and the ability to transact with, that another sort of 25 million in equity, we're not in a position where we need to inflate that.
Right.
So from that standpoint, I'm comfortable. Would I prefer it was less? Yeah, I'd prefer it was less.
Sure. Okay. But it looks like you won't have to do any financings soon.
We're well capitalized going forward here, and with the back of the idea of transacting on Palmer, that's going to put us in a really strong position.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mickey?
Yeah, that posh Englishman just stole all my questions.
How are you, Mickey?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you again, Warwick. It's been
It's
a
good to
long
see you too.
time.
It has. I hope you're well.
Neither of us lives in the same building in Vancouver anymore. So,
That's right. That's right. Well, I had a family and moved out to Steveston, so it's a lot more space out here for the kids.
yeah, we just moved further towards Stanley Park in
Oh, nice.
about a
Okay,
year
good.
and a half ago. So,
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
yeah. So, since Adrian took all my primary questions, do you have a concerning the shareholdings? And I know you ran through that pretty quickly. Is there access to a list of that or a pie chart? Could you provide us with some sort of chart so we can get a better idea where the shares are located?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could. Yeah, I don't have one on me, but I can put one together quickly. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, yeah.
Of that share count, how much would management hold?
Yeah, so between management and their families, it's roughly 8%. So it's a big holding in particular for Eric and I. It is without a doubt American Pacific is our baby, and it's the thing that we focus on. It's the thing that we work on. We don't have a fleet of companies that we do. We focus on American Pacific.
And did you and Eric or other insiders participate in the last financing? I think you said that was in November.
Yep, I think I put $50,000 in that financing. I would have put in more. We announced 3 million, ended up taking 4.5, so it was oversubscribed. So put $50,000 in, and I think I put that roughly that amount into every financing that we've ever done.
Okay.
Yep.
And switching gears a bit,
Mm-hmm.
You're in a part of Montana that's mining friendly, but it's also fly fisherman friendly. The Jefferson River, which drains into the Missouri, one of the Madison, the Jefferson, and I forget what the other one is. But how far are you from the Jefferson River? And if you were to find, this is getting way ahead of myself, but if you were to discover a big porphyry, would that be of a concern with direct drainage into the Jefferson River, perhaps?
These things are always going to be concerns no matter where you are, right?
Sure.
We're not that. If you look at it on a map, it looks relatively close. Do I see it off the top of my head being the issue? No, but I can let Eric answer this as well. What I would say is this. I mean, this was in production between 2008 and 2012. It was small scale production, but we still have the small scale mining permit in place up there. We also we own 192 acres of land kind of in between us and the river that American Pacific owns as part of that transaction when we took over the Madison project, which gives us some buffer as well. It also gives us a lot of ground for that we may need in the future if there is a good amount of success here too. So look, it's always a concern whether you're in Montana, Alaska, Nevada, or what have you. You have to think these things through. I can say that we've had a lot of interest from majors, including working with Rio for some time, who felt that, typically with these majors, they do an awful lot of due diligence in advance. They want to know that they think they can find it, and if they find it, that they can put it in production. We had a great relationship with them. We've had numerous others that have come down and kicked tires as well. So, certainly the thesis is if it is there, that we'll be able to work it. Eric, do you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, we're about 2 miles away from the Jefferson, but it's never has been that much of a concern. In Montana, when you're on that side of the divide, that's all you have is rivers. You can't throw a rock across a valley without hitting 3 of them. So it's something that has been kind of baked into the cake a little bit. Sure, it'll take some due diligence and some some effort to get it into production, but I don't see that it'd be a real big problem.
And why did Rio Tinto pull out? It sounds like they still are interested in the district, perhaps, but
we had a, I'll start off like by saying this piece. We continue to have a fantastic relationship with Rio Tinto. As a small company, I mean, you talk about David and Goliath. I think our concerns going in when we bought the asset, it came with a joint venture with Rio. And there was big pluses to that for sure. The downside was there was a long wick on it. They were to spend 30 million, but they had 11 years to do it. That was a concern. The second piece for me was what was it going to be like with news flow, et cetera. They were excellent to work with. I say we remain in good stead with them. We like the Rio guys. We continue to talk to the Rio guys. They continue to be helpful on this project. We've had discussions on other things as well. In 2023, they came to us and said, we don't have budget to drill it this year. We like it, but we don't have budget. And we said, okay. 2024 hit, and it was the same story. And they said, we think we're going to be able to drill it next year, if not the next, but we don't have budget this year. To the extent that doesn't work for you guys, you can take it back. We took it back. We're small, right? We're a $40 million market cap. It was important to us to be able to get out and drill what we always kind of viewed as our flagship project. We keep in touch with the guys. We like the guys. We'd happily work with them again on this or something else.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, Mick.
Thanks, Mick. Good
Lau?
to see you.
Yes, thanks. Thank you for the presentation, Warwick. I sort of have two questions wrapped into one, and both concern Madison. So first, what drove the decision to prioritize Madison over Palmer? Given Palmer's, I think you said that was 16.7 metric tons resource, and his significant historical spend. And the second part of the question is, you also talked about aiming for a fifth or sixth mineralizing event at Madison. I was just wondering if you could elaborate on what geological evidence gives you confidence that something new and substantial, like you said, is sitting below.
Yeah, I'll take the first part, and then I'll pass the second part to Eric, who's the brains of the operation. We prioritized Madison over Palmer. We like Palmer a lot. We think Palmer can be big. Everyone who's gone up there has said to us, kind of within 3 kilometers of the known resource, we think this could get to 25 million tons. And if you go outside of that, you could get to 50. It can be world class. It's got that opportunity. It's going to take money to do that. And it's Alaska. It's outside of our wheelhouse, if we're completely honest. We think that if we're being honest, we think that there are better groups that are more well suited towards Alaska than we are. When we did the transaction, we did it with a world-class partner who was funding it. We went into it knowing that the JV agreement with them wasn't perfect. And we took 2.5 years trying to rejig it. When we did, it worked great because we got 100% back. We got paid on the way through. And now we've got this opportunity to transact. To us, that makes the most sense for American Pacific driving it forward. Why Madison? Geologically, we think Madison can be something special. That's our take. Those grades, the opportunity to get down deep on it, are things that we've seen really excite the market in the past. 2021 was slightly more risk on. 21, 22, and the market did really well for us, was slightly more risk on, but it was by no means a real bull market for junior mining companies. We were the outlier. We feel that's coming, and we feel Madison puts us in the best position there for both A, the market, but B, for success as well. Eric, why don't I pass off to you? You can talk a bit about the geologic question of why we think there could be a sixth mineralizing event there.
Right. Well, we have identified 5 clearly separate intrusive phases out there. Anything from ultramafic diabases all the way down to relatively stable Cretaceous Monzo granites. So there clearly is an evolution, and if you deal with porphyry systems, you know that has to happen. You've got to have the multiple pulses. It doesn't happen in one fell swoop. It happens over multiple generations. So the fact that we have 5, and the fact that the latite porphyry, which only has 1 hole in it, is relatively well altered at the surface, at the contact with the marbles, and also starts to pick up alteration as you get deeper into it, which has not been tested, is a very good sign that maybe it wasn't the driving engine and something off to the west or the southwest is probably the mineralizing pluton or intrusive body.
Okay. All right. Ed?
Does that work for you, Lau, or anything more on that one, or you good? I think
You're
you're
muted, Lau.
Sorry, you're muted, Lau.
I apologize. Yeah, I said it does. Thank you.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. Ed?
Hey, Warwick, how are you, man?
I'm good. Nice to meet you, Ed. Pleasure.
Nice to meet you too. So, well, it's a pretty exciting project, right? In the heart of the U.S., lots of smoke, right? So I've got a few questions. Just I'll try to be timely for the other guys too. So, how long have you been working on this company yourself right now?
I took the company, both Eric and I took the company public in March of 2018.
2018, right?
Yeah.
So are you managing any other companies right now?
So I sit on the board of a lithium company, of all things, called Cantor Resources. It's the only other thing that I sit on the board of. I don't manage anything else.
And in terms of time, is this American year 100%, right?
Yeah, it feels like it's about 90 hours a week.
That's good. That's good. So, I know the people who drilled this. I know the people who managed the Broadway Gold.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Names eluded me now. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm curious, and I asked one of them over the weekend what they thought of the project, and I won't mention the name because I don't want to compromise anybody's privileges or whatever. But the answer came back to me was that in the end they spent about $4.5 million looking for the target. It was very it was convoluted and difficult and tough, and it was elusive. How deep did they drill?
The deepest hole that they put in was the one that we referenced. That was the 1,000-foot hole that was quite close to Madison. The bulk of what the Broadway guys did was actually underground drilling. So in that video, when it starts off, you can see that portal. So they were going into that portal and they were going down the decline, and then they were poking holes out from there. So most of it was sort of T-Rex underground drilling. Look, this is a skarn at surface and then a porphyry underneath. Skarns can be tricky. There's no doubt about it. Now, the prize can be big if you get them right. And so that's what we're looking to do here. But also a big part of the focus is this porphyry, right? And going after that and chasing that. They did a good job of that, drilling that one hole in 2017 that hit into that latite porphyry that Eric has referenced.
Great.
Our geologic model is quite different. We've done an awful lot of work since then, and a lot more regional work as well. And now we're getting the chance to go and drill that. So it's a different, tactically, we're going at it differently than they were. They were kind of focused on that underground, putting that, I mean, they were the ones who produced that 2.6 million. Sorry, I'm going to correct myself. It wasn't them. It was Coronado that had that in production. My apologies. That was the predecessor to them. Broadway came in and drilled some holes as well, mostly around the Madison mine, including the latite porphyry piece. That they weren't the ones who put it in production, so I correct myself. There's some history there as I go back through my mind. Look, I think the guys did a good job. Certainly drilling into the latite porphyry and bringing in Rio. Credit to them as they did it, and then obviously they stepped away and that turned into become mine medicine at that point when we picked it up. So yeah, different. To answer your question, just we're looking at it differently in terms of the regional scale of it and drilling after some of those targets. But Eric, maybe you want to comment on that as well, the difference between what Broadway did and what we did, or what we are doing.
Well, Broadway came in and they did, as Warwick said, they did some pretty good work. They unfortunately didn't incorporate a lot of the work that they did into their 3D models, and we have found that data since. It wasn't a part of our data room. So we were going to spend $250,000 last year to do an IP survey. It turns out they already did one. And we found it in paper, we found the raw data. And so some of our targets are being driven by their data that they were in a transition. They bought it from Coronado and then, went in to drill and did a lot of good work, but just didn't incorporate it into a model. Well, we have done that since then. So our targets are far more refined. And as Warwick said, they were underground drilling. They were drilling in and around the skarn. They really didn't drill a lot of holes outboard at all on the property. And I think that's where the big the big kahuna could be out to the west, and that's never, it's seen one hole by Rio, and they didn't really drill it in the right place. So we have targets galore right now, and it's just a matter of testing them throughout this summer.
So they left some loose ends, obviously, as you're pointing out, right? So did they run out of money? Is that what the deal was, or did they just kind of think, well, the risk of plowing more money into this is, compared to the reward, maybe just too difficult, right?
What actually happened with them, Ed, is they brought in Rio in March of 2019, and 2 months later they halted from trading, and they became a company focused on psychedelics, literally medical mushrooms.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so they completely pivoted away from mining altogether. My understanding at the time was they just felt that mining was tough. The mining space was tough from a stock perspective. Credit to them, the company that they started was called Madison. It did incredibly well, and we were able to pick up the asset and the partnership with Rio for $2.6 million for the stock. So for us, it worked out incredibly well.
Do they own any stock, or do they still own any stock in the company?
I'll be honest. I mean, I don't. What we did is we distributed it out to their shareholders, which was pretty retail heavy at the time. It's terrible. His name is right on the tip of my tongue. I literally saw him a couple of months ago, and I can't think of it. And I know he's still a shareholder. But there was a lot of retail that was in that, who have probably bought it, sold it, etc. So there is obviously a retail, good retail component to American Pacific. And when those people are buying and selling, it's kind of hard to know.
Right.
But the entity itself does not. It was just distributed out to shareholders when we took it over.
Right. So okay, well, I'll leave it at that. I might come back, but
yeah. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Great. Byron, please.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Matt and Doug, thank you for arranging this with American Pacific. Hello, Warwick, and hello, Eric.
Byron, how are you?
I'm doing well. I feel like Rip Van Winkle. I just sort of woke up. I went to sleep a couple of years ago. Not really. 2 years ago, I think it was 2023, the summer of August. I was out there at Madison, and Eric was nice enough to take me and my son out and show us around. And so we spent the whole day kicking rocks out there, and that was very useful. I'll just sort of a comment, and then I'll kind of get to the point here. I was immensely impressed at what was on the surface. It's the skarn and what had been mined, and I was thinking to myself, "Wow, man, this is great." And it was all, geez, if you can find the source for that, man, you're in high cotton, And at the time, back 2 years ago, the company, you had Palmer and you had the Nevada projects, and it struck me that you kind of were juggling a lot of different things. Now, Rip Van Winkle, like waking up 2 years later, it seems like you really got this thing, wrapped up in terms of, like where you're going to go from here. So I'm very impressed at what you're putting on the table here.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Byron.
Palmer, I like Palmer a lot, but like I said, working in Alaska that's a whole different, kind of management up there. And then the Nevada guys, they always seem promising, but if you're going to JV them, and now's the time to do it, with $3,500 gold this morning. So anyhow, getting back to Madison, I'm glad to hear that you spent 2 years just kind of, trying to get get the whole geology, the geophysics put together, the IP and everything else. I'm frankly like intrigued at what you're doing out there. I know I wrote about this like 2 years ago, but the share price didn't do anything. It's not like, but we were in a horrible, crappy market. Nobody wanted to buy anything. My point is, and it's not so much a question, it's just I really think that with the right couple of drill holes, you could just explode this thing in a good way. So I'm really intrigued to keep following what's going on with what you're doing. I was very impressed. So that's not really a question, but it adds maybe some background to what everything else we're talking about.
Thanks, Byron. I appreciate it.
And Adrian with his British accent, he asks questions, and Mickey, he asks, they ask all the good questions, and so that leads me to just sort of make a personal comment. But I appreciated the time we spent there, Eric. Thank you.
If I can comment back just very quickly to give credit to both teams, I think Eric and the team in Montana have done a fantastic job, but a hell of a lot of credit it goes to Peter Mercer, who's on this call as well, up in Alaska. Yes, Alaska's a different beast, and ultimately, we look at this and say, if we transact there, if we do this, then we can do this. And those groups up in Alaska that focus in Alaska, they want guys like Peter and his team because he's excellent. He did just a phenomenal job up there. So I imagine when we transact, we may be losing him as well, which I hope isn't the case, but we'll, he came up there and really professionalized the organization up there and did a phenomenal job. So credit to those guys.
Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to sort of bring that up, but I was really pleased to be able to, get a download on what you're doing right now. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Byron. Thank you.
Great. Doug.
Yeah, I remember talking about Alaska. It must have been 30 years ago. There was, well, you had it on your map, this gigantic ultra high grade polymetallic deposit called the Windy
Pebble.
Craggy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, the Pebble's another problem, I guess, but I'm thinking about the Windy Craggy, which was gigantic. And it was shut down for the goofiest environmental reasons that I recall that I'd ever heard. It was seen from a highway, and it was deemed to be a sight blot. And do you think that the powers that be that did that, I don't know if they were, I can't remember, if they were at a national level or a local level. Of course, the greenies are everywhere. But those projects in Alaska, the project in Alaska you have is great results, great country, but is it ever going to be developed, even with the Trump administration wanting to change things? I mean, what's really the boots on the ground feeling about that?
Why don't I chime in on that for 2 seconds, and I'll pass to Peter, who can give you the real boots on the ground information on it. I would say this: when we diligenced Palmer, the things that we diligenced, two things we diligenced the most were the opportunity to get it into production, so the permitting situation, and then two, local support opposition. Those were the two things that we felt we needed to get the best handle on. One of the things that we really liked about Palmer was it's on what's called, the bulk of it is on what's called mental health trust ground. So it was annexed from the BLM, so the Bureau of Land Management, and turned into what's called mental health trust ground. So what it means is it's business friendly ground. We would have to pay a small NSR. So any money that's made on that ground, a portion of that goes to mental health trust initiatives in the state of Alaska. So it does make it a bit easier from permitting from that standpoint. For the moment, this isn't Pebble. This isn't Windy Craggy. It's 16.7 million tons, which is a nice size VMS, but it's not huge. It's going to be an underground mine. It's going to be an underground mine. It's not going to be a quote unquote an eyesore. There's lots of things to like on that standpoint. Our takeaway, Doug, when we did the due diligence on it, was if this couldn't be permitted, nothing could be permitted up in Alaska. That was our take. And that was pre the Trump administration. Now you've had Trump come in saying, we're going to open up Alaska, we're going to build the Rambler Road, we're going to do all of these things. Not all of that's going to happen in 4 years, and God knows where we'll be in 4 years. So to your point, there's always going to be questions on that. Our take, again, there's a lot of really smart, good groups up there that can take this on and push it forward. But with that, Peter, why don't you chime in? Give your 2 cents on that if you could.
Yep, thanks. It's a good question, Doug. I think the easiest to answer to it is there's other mines that have been permitted, particularly in Southeast. You've got Kensington down there, you've got Greens Creek, and similar to what Greens Creek did, brought in production in the late 80s, you get the first deposit into production, then you can keep growing it and building it out from there, which is really why the Delaware were interested in the project in the first place. There's always going to be some pushback from the green side on keeping everything pristine. But the reality is, when you look at what Trump put out there, Alaska was the only state that had a specific executive order looking at mineral extraction, looking at oil and gas, looking at the opportunities for forestry. So there is a real focus on Alaska and the potential that it can bring. And certainly this Alexander mineral terrain that we're working in, capped off on the Windy Craggy at 300 million tons copper cobalt, extending right down through the south. with mines already in production in Southeast Alaska, to echo Warwick, yes, this can be done here. You have to incorporate the discussions around salmon, the landscape, the environment, the culture. You'll have to incorporate all of that into your planning, but that's what you have to do for all these projects this day and age. So as a part of the planning, you incorporate it into your both your exploration and ultimately your development plan. So the short answer is yes, it can be developed. It has been shown to be developed in the past, and there's tremendous amount of mineral potential, both discovered and undiscovered, in this region.
Just personally, from being there, what do you think is going to happen to Pebble at this point?
It's a great question. Pebble had some other aspects from being able to see it from space and being at the head of Biscay Bay. So I think there were some other challenges with Pebble that certainly will have to be demonstrated that it can be done safely. And I think that's the ultimate question for all of these. It's sustainable and safely within the environment that it sits in is important. And so I think there's some other options, some other items that have to be discussed around Pebble and how it can be safeguarded to protect the environment that it's working in. Demonstrate that and show that, and then these projects can proceed. But that's as part of finding the mineral. As important as finding the mineral these days is showing how it can be done, how it can be reclaimed and done sustainably within the environment that it is.
Well, you know, when I look at American Pacific, I think you have to put everything in the context of the market cap of the company. Let's say that those warrants that are outstanding are never going to be exercised, or they'll go away. The options that the company has, what's the strike price on them? 16 million, was it?
Yeah, there's I think it's 15 or 16 million, Doug, off the top of my head. They vary everywhere from 20 cents at the low end to $1 at the high end, split by all the management team and all the employees. The vast bulk of them are out of the money for the moment.
I wonder if are you going to reprice them? Are you allowed to? What's the current rule?
You're allowed to. We had an in-person board meeting in January. We made the decision not to do that for the moment. So we'll revisit that another year from now. And we always sit down in person once a year. We do board meetings all the time like this on Zoom, but we made the decision not to do that. Don't always love doing that. There are times where it can make sense. Happy to just buy some more at the market at this point.
Well, that's very investor friendly.
I would say this, if I could just chime in on that. That's for me, right? For when we hire new employees, we give them stock options, and that ends up being at the price that it is at the time. I think you got to take care of your people. And there's a difference between sort of executives and, you know, somebody who's coming in to do a job, and their ability to write a check may be different. So we like to take care of those people as well. So if we do new hires, they get options as well. So sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so now going to Madison and what's going on there. When Butte was developed, it was a different era, totally.
Mm-hmm.
And let's suppose you have something that's large, although I guess almost nothing is that large. But I wonder, even in the new, for the next few years anyway, political environment, whether even if you hit that deep porphyry and you're getting great results, no question about that. But is it really developable in this era? Quite frankly, I mean, the capital costs would be gigantic to go into that porphyry, which is how deep? Starting a couple hundred meters anyway.
Yeah, a couple hundred meters, 1,000 feet is where the latite was hit.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very, very capital intensive project. I'm just wondering whether it could ever really be developed, frankly.
I'll give you a couple of answers to that, and then I can pass to Eric as well on that. But one of the nice parts with Madison, when you're shooting for this porphyry, is you've got a skarn above it. So you've got pay dirt up high, and then you're ideally getting something down below that's even bigger. So you'd be making money on your way down to get into it, and with incredible grades near surface. Obviously, you want to see that get bigger through drilling as well, but we're taking part in that drilling too. If you look at it from market cap perspective, as you mentioned, at a $40 million market cap, if you go and hit a big porphyry, you're going to do incredibly well. We're not going to be the group that's going to be the ones to probably look to put this in production. That's not our strong suit. But I think there certainly would be groups that would be interested and would look to drive an asset of that size forward. Eric, I'm happy for you to chime in on that. So you can.
One other thing, just to avoid confusion.
Yeah.
When we talk about the market cap, the cash, are we talking American or Canadian dollars?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have specified Canadian dollars. So 15 million in cash Canadian, just sub 40 million market cap Canadian.
Oh, okay.
Eric, please.
Well, the Madison mine, if it's going to be an open pit, yeah, it'll be something that'll be slightly different than what we envision. It's been traditionally underground, and if it's a high grade porphyry throughout the world, we'll probably be mining that, or some of them will be mining it underground. So they'll be stoping it and block caving, doing whatever they do for their mining techniques. So I don't envision it being a butte in the fact that it's not going to be a pit that's 2 miles long. Same with Pebble. I would say the same thing. One of the challenges there is Pebble right now is open pit. And in that fact, it's going to be more challenging because of the excavation. But if you look at Palmer, you're looking at strict underground. That'll never be an open pit. It'll have very small footprint. It's very well thought out. So I think being underground is always it's a big thing anymore in the modern times. It doesn't mean that a pit couldn't happen there, but I really foresee if anything we hit will be for the most part mined underground.
Oh, that's very interesting and very important, I think. One other question before I sign off. Are there any liabilities against any of these properties, namely royalties or the like, outstanding?
Yeah, so both Palmer and Madison have NSRs on them. Madison, it's 1.5%. We can buy 0.5% down for I think it's $1.5 million US. Would remain with a 1% NSR. And then in the case of Palmer, Peter, you can answer that because it kind of varies on the two different ground types.
2.5% on the federal BLM land, and then 3.5% on the MHT grounds.
Yep.
Well, it's fairly high for a royalty, wouldn't you say? I wonder if that's going to be a serious compromise to
the image. The mental health trust ground at 3.5 is a conversation we've been having for 2 years with them as well. About finding a way to reduce that and help make that more palatable to investors as well. So that's an ongoing conversation too. The thing that they're going to have to understand is if you want this to go into production and make some money on it, it's got to make sense. So we're working towards that as well.
Okay, but at this point, selling more royalties on any of these properties is pretty much off the table to generate cash for the company.
Yeah, no, we've never looked at it. We had interest from one of the main royalty companies early on, but never felt that was the right way for us to go. We've been able to transact in a way, especially over the past 2 years. I mean, the past 2 years, we've taken in $18 million in cash without putting out any shares. So $4 million from management fee, and then and these are Canadian dollars, $14 million in terms of when we sold the option on the zinc concentrate to DOA. So we've taken in $18 million non-dilutively over the past 2 years. So that's worked quite well for us. We're creative in the way that we've been able to finance this company.
Okay. Ed, you have a question again?
Hey, Matt, I've got a question, but my little hand doesn't work.
Okay, well, Brian, go ahead then.
All right,
ahead,
thanks. Warwick, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Brent. How you doing?
Well done, but I need to talk to the brains.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, take them away.
All right, so Eric, it looks like in the most recent technical report, Rio drilled maybe half a dozen or so holes outside the main Madison area, looking at and testing some geophysical targets. And for the most part, they hit some altered porphyry, but not much mineralization. So I'm wondering what's different now that they didn't test with their deeper geophysical drilling.
Well, the one hole that they drilled out to the west was an interesting hole because it's one of the first holes they drilled, in 2021, I believe it was 2020 it was. And so right when they got the project, they did the magnetic survey a year later. So here they were drilling, I don't know really what. And if you talk to Bede, in fact, I'm meeting the Rio guys tomorrow night for dinner. So we still stay in contact. I'll be in Montana. He said, well, I never would have drilled the hole where we drilled it, but they drilled it. Then they did this drone flyover magnetic survey, and the targets really started to highlight, but they didn't drill any more holes out there. And within a couple of years, as Warwick said, they moved away. So if you talk to Bede, he really was not a big fan of pulling out of that project. So he still stays in touch with me, likes to read our press releases and stays in touch with the company. But they just didn't test the targets that they probably should have, because they literally did some of the work that would have defined their drill targets after they quit drilling. Doesn't make sense, but we all do it.
All right, and your thinking now is that the Radar Creek Pluton is not the actual mineralizer. Is that correct?
I've never thought it was. The fact that it's so intensely endoskarned locally means it just didn't do that to itself. That wasn't a factor of cooling. It's mainly a Cretaceous intrusive body. It's batholithic. So it just doesn't look sexy enough to be the source for those skarns. It just does not. It's echogranular. It's not porphyritic. It's just, to me, it's a dead man. It's in the way. So it's a fluid path from the west. And when you get off to the west, you get into what we call the Silver Star Fault zone. It's several structures that are all compressional extensional. So they're definitely severe orogeny, and now they've extended. So that's where the fluids are coming up. But what they aren't getting through is the Raider Creek. They're using that as a fluid path upwards. So the fluids, to me, are coming from the west, from the southwest. And the fact that the latite porphyry, especially at the surface at the marble contact, is so hammered, potassically altered, it might not be the one either. So even though we have 5 episodes of intrusives, all of various textures and appearances, I still think what did that to the latite porphyry, which has no name like the Raider Creek, it's not exposed at the surface, is something that happened distal or proximal to that. So the skarns themselves are not associated with the Raider Creek. It's just in the way. The carbonates were in the way, and they became the fluids. And there's up to 100 feet of endoskarn in there. So I just haven't seen a porphyritic system do that to itself without another thing doing it to it.
So you're thinking that reverse fault to the west is the fluid pathway from something deeper?
Yeah, that's definitely a suture of a thrust, because you're putting 2.2 billion year old rock against 350 million year old rock. And you squished all of that rock into a highly folded carbonate package in between the Raider and in between the belt. But all that dips underneath that. So it's about 67. It's hard to get an exact measurement on what that fault's doing, but it's about 65 to 70 degrees. And that should preserve the carbonate sequence as you move under it. So your skarn body could wind up being much bigger down there if the carbonates are still there and they haven't just been squished up into like a little syncline. But the fact that we have 80 grams gold coming up through veins associated really with this magnetic high is strong evidence that we need to drill in that area. And there aren't any holes at all out there to test that.
Okay, and that's where the geophysical targets are.
Yeah, and then we did radiometrics, where we use essentially uranium exploration technology, and we flew a drone over it for relatively inexpensive. And we were hoping to pick up uranium, because uranium seems to run with the higher grades there. That was a little bit crazy. It didn't work out so well, but the potassium really showed some enhancement, even in the belt rocks, which are pretty hard to deal with. Those gneisses and schists just kind of are the way they are. They've been that way for 2.2 billion years. So the alteration of those is pretty tough to do. But we have a good signature of potassium around our magnetic high, and a depletion of magnetite around that as well. So in association with the potassium, we have a magnetite low or a magnetic low, then a magnetic high. And we know that some of these dikes that are shooting from this body are mafic. And every time we've seen them in our drilling, they have been associated with high grade gold, whether it be massive sulfide or just breccia. or jasperoid. So these dikes are telling us something that we don't quite understand yet. They're not highly altered, but boy, are they associated with the structures that are pumping pretty good grades into the Madison. And that's where we're going to go head into that late stage magnetic signature. It's pretty cylindrical. It's a little bit elongated, but I think that might just be being stretched around by those structures.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you. And good luck. And how's your compound in Utah coming along?
I finished up my last cabin last year, so I'm ready to be a hermit when I get a chance.
You got to sell the company
Matt,
first, Eric.
if I could jump in here as well, my
Please do.
hand's not working either.
Yes.
Hey,
Hey, Lawrence, how are you?
Good. Eric, a question. You and your team have clearly done some tremendous work here in understanding the geology of the Madison, and it looks like you've got a really good shot at the porphyry, and if you hit it, it's going to do wonders for the share price. But in the meantime, or as an alternative or in parallel, is there a chance that the skarn would hold together and make for an economic deposit on its own? I mean, there's some very good grades in there. That does it hang together at all in a way that there might be a deposit within the skarn material itself?
We're just, I guess we're just probably in the infancy on understanding the exact emplacement of the skarns. Because they're like a skarn, of course. They're very high grade, highest grade skarn I've ever seen. But they can be notoriously potty. So the 4 kilometers that we have from the top of the project, the north part to the southeast part, really has been untested when it comes to the skarn. Rio was always under the thesis or under the belief that the skarn itself, if it continued to expand, would be enough for them. You know, if it was another fortitude, another 2.5 million ounces, they would just take the skarn and then throughout time start to sequentially see if they could find the source rock. So I think we have potential, especially moving down on the Raider Creek contact, which eventually becomes covered in thin gravel, for more skarn discoveries, and they have not been drilled at all down in that area. As Warwick said, 98% of the drilling has been focused on the Madison. So if you look at the way these faults are established, they were compressional, now they're extensional, a little bit anyways. And so your skarn body might dive and go a little bit deeper. So it's not going to be predictable as to where it is till you understand exactly what the movement on some of those structures are. But there's no real reason, given our drilling last year and a couple of the holes that Rio drilled, to figure that as you move off to the west, that the skarn is going to just die because the carbonate package is still there.
Now, is that going to be part of your exploration program in this next round? Is to probe for more of this?
Yeah, we've done a fair amount of work and seen what these jasperoids have done. They're a very unique skarnoidal type feature, but they're kind of a very powerful acid fluid, and they leave some good high grade gold and copper as oxide, so easy to process for sure. We're just getting that, figuring all that out by looking at old core and everything. So it's a little bit of a unique skarn, even though some of it's Hedenbergitic skarn. A lot of it looks just like the stuff you'll see anywhere else, but there are some unique features in it that separate it from others. And we do with that. We're moving down to the southeast. Skarn Ridge is one we'll be drilling. We've got up to 14 grams gold and some pretty decent oxide copper that has never been drilled, and that'll be part of our phase 2. Well, we're essentially segueing these phases as throughout the summer based upon permitting. We have permits for one, and we're working on the permits for the other. Hopefully we can just move the program along and then terminate it in September.
It sounds like a really good fallback target if the porphyry doesn't work out, or if it takes longer to get to the porphyry.
That's a very good point. And we're trying to hit a lot of different birds with the same stone. But a lot of it is it's not green fields because we've done a tremendous amount of work, but it's, some of these holes are going to hit and some aren't. I think we understand the skarn deposition a little better now than we did before.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Ed, I guess you were up.
Right. Hi. So can you hear me?
You can.
Yes.
Yep.
So on the one question I have is, so given what Eric said about the scarn, why did Kennecott walk away then, or why did they opt out of the earning?
I would say that the reason they did, it's multiple phased, of course. It's the decisions are always made at the corporate level, and they're never at the field level really. So they had a change in management. They moved their exploration offices to a different place, and I think that I really don't understand exactly why they left, but I think it was a lot of it was to do with budgets.
Right.
They just, rather than hold on to something where you can't go drill it, the company said, so what have you been doing there? Well, we don't have any money, so we're not doing anything. And they not only moved out of that, but they moved out of their Phillipsburg project. There's a couple more that they moved out of up there. Ironically, they're back again. They're over by Dillon right now drilling. I can't remember the name of the property they have, but they're back in town again. So they moved all out. Somebody probably made another decision. Barrick's very high up on that target. They're working in Idaho and in Montana as well. They came out to review it last year. So I think Rio just says they look at their 15-year plan and they think, we have no copper in 15 years. We're going to mine out what we have. We have to either acquire or we have to go explore. And they've always been an acquisition type company, but now they're focusing more on going and finding it themselves, as is Barrick. Barrick was traditionally gold only. Now they're into the copper game just recently, 18 months.
They want to change their name, if I recall.
This the 3,000 meter drill program that you got scheduled. When are you going to start that exactly?
We're drilling it right now.
Okay.
That's where I'm headed.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to stop in Idaho to do some meetings, but I'm about halfway to where I'm going tomorrow.
And I'll comment on that too. Yeah, it started roughly about a week ago. We announced that the drilling was starting today on a press release as we got into Easter long weekend there. So it's 3,000 meters right now, and that'll vector into another 7,000 after that. So roughly a 10,000 meter program all in all.
And how many holes?
Right now we have 17 planned, but that always changes. So it's 17 that are permitted. We have the pads and everything on a permit. But once you start, drilling a hole that's not what you think, you adjust it a little bit, or you just don't drill another from that pad. But we should have all of that permitting on the western side, which is going to be the deeper drilling, done in about a month and a half.
So that's where you're starting on the western side.
We're starting over, actually, where Lawrence just referenced, over in the Scarn area, and moving to the south of that. So in areas that haven't been drilled, that have potential to have skarn and also this latite porphyry. And it's worth pointing out that we have some boxes to look at that when Broadway was drilling, they lost the hole in the latite porphyry at, I believe it was 1,400 feet or so roughly 300 meters. And when they lost it, they were picking up potassic alteration and more classic style porphyry signatures, sulfide veins, pyrite veins. The grade was starting to kick up enough that it really excites us, the fact that they just didn't drill tombstone rock all the way through that latite. Started out altered, went into a little more solid portion, and then they never got out of it. So all the indicators are that off to the west and the southwest is probably where the source is.
Right. And how much of that drilling is going to be focused on looking for that deep porphyry?
We have 5 holes to start off with. The deepest one is about, we really don't know it. At 2,500 feet is about what we're looking at 700 meters ish. And that'll give us some pretty good ideas. The one hole that was drilled by Rio was interesting because they drilled through a lot of belt rock, and they weren't in a place that they probably should have been, but they didn't do their survey till the next year. They got down to 2,400 feet, and at the bottom of the hole, they were picking up a lot of epidote skarn, so exoskarn, and they were also picking up what would look to me like the biotite hornfels. So you don't make that out of belt rock. You're probably dealing with more carbonaceous or silicious carbonaceous protolith. They might have started into that rock right there. I mean, the last box is just a coffee colored hornfels, which was a totally anomalous looking for the whole hole. Was pretty, pretty gneissic, and it just was belt rock, metamorphic rock. So
Right.
there are some good indicators that, and we're going to drill a much more focused, I think, based upon all the data we have, hole than they did. They drilled well away from it. They might not have gone deep enough, but they certainly weren't in the right place. They weren't on top of the magnetic high, and they weren't really in a place that if they had to take that hole back, they would. They'd drill it in another place.
So, but 5 holes at that depth, that would make up the whole 3,000 meter first phase program, right?
That'll segue into the second phase. Right now, we're sticking with RC, so reverse circulation, so a little bit more of a straight exploration. But the RC holes that we've drilled out there versus the core holes show that there's no statistical difference other than the sampling, obviously, and you don't get to see the core. But we're following up on straight core from last year and many core programs that have happened prior to this. So the RC was a cheaper way to get in, see if we want a core in there or see if we want to deepen those holes. So what we'll probably do on the other holes is drill through the belt rock, which we can easily tell in chips, and then terminate the hole at, say, 1,000 feet, and then go in with core after that.
Okay. And I just one more question. The Hercules deposit, how far is that from?
It's about 150 miles, air miles, I think, or about that. I've never been there, but I know the deposit from reading about it. And that's a decent analogy or analog, I think, just because of the fact that the holes that they drilled, the shallow holes, never hit what they wanted to hit, and they finally did, and now it's open. It's very similar in the fact that the skarn development is in the same rocks, same age rocks, but the skarn itself is not nearly as high grade as Madison.
Right.
Not even close.
That was just recent, wasn't it? That they found the
2023, I believe, was the
just a couple years.
Porphyry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that sort of revived the area a little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely. But the grades are they have the tons, or they're starting to develop the tons, but the grades of what they've hit are far lower, order of magnitude lower than what we hit at Madison. So if you use the thesis that something powerful made that skarn, and that's all the thesis we have right now is, yes, something's down there, yes, something made a very well endowed skarn. Where is it? And that's what we're trying to figure out now. We have a real good idea of where we think it is. No guarantees, but there's a lot of porphyries up there. And porphyry systems and porphyry rocks are two different things. So it's a porphyry belt. There's a lot of dry ones there, but there's also a lot of juicy ones as well. The Kumo, the Butte, obviously, there's a slew of them that run along that mystery belt, northeast belt.
And so how deep is too deep for eventually mining an open pit?
Well, if you use Chile, I believe they're now drilling holes. I believe it's Chile. They're drilling 4,000 meter holes to get to 4% copper.
For an open pit?
That'll be underground for sure.
Yeah,
underground. So there's no fright at all about drilling a deep hole as long as the copper grade's there and the tonnages are there. And I think underground mining, especially if you have something at the surface that can pay you while you're going down into it, is probably the wave of the future in just about any kind of mining. The Carlin Trend right now is almost 100% underground. No one notices that, but I live there. So all the open pits are pretty much shut down now. They're taking everything underground. That way it's easier to permit. It's a limited amount of disturbance, obviously. And it's also very automation friendly. So you're going to see that happen in the industry as well pretty quickly, is that automated mining is going to take over a lot of the duties.
What kind of a grade would be too low for you, or where you would lose interest?
Depending on the depth and how it links up with everything else, I think you sit at probably a 1.5%. 2% copper is probably going to be what you're going to go after underground. And once you establish your infrastructure, then you can take a lot lower grades to get it out. But you're going to have a good high grade plum to go in after to start the whole operation.
Okay, great. Lau?
Yeah, one more question for Warwick.
Yes.
If you do end up transacting on Palmer and take back that 25 million in equity, as I think you mentioned, how would you ideally look to deploy that capital? M&A, drilling, something else? I understand that things can change, but just curious how you're thinking about it right now, because it seems like a potential catalyst, or at least something that could lead to a catalyst. And also, are there any active conversations going on right now? I apologize if I missed that part earlier during the presentation.
No trouble at all. Yes, active conversations going on. Yeah, we've been on it for a little while, on conversations on it. What would we do with the additional equity? Look, when we came into, I mentioned that board meeting in January, the in-person board meeting, one of the discussions we were having is, do we go out and do more M&A? Do we go and buy something? And I think the feeling coming in was, yeah, that we probably did. When Eric took the pen and gave the presentation on Madison, we all kind of sat back and said, we may have what we already need, and so let's go and drill this. And if we do, that will be the focus. So we're going to let this program play out and then make decisions at the end of it. We're always kind of looking. We've been successful in the M&A front for the most part, and we'll continue to review projects, and if something makes sense, not afraid to go and snap something up. Something advanced in the lower 48 would be of interest, but we really like this Madison asset, and we're going to let this drill program show us what's there.
Sorry, conversations are ongoing with just one company or a number of them?
You're going to peg me down, aren't you? There's a couple of companies, although, one being more advanced than the rest. Is that fair?
That's good enough.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Great. Okay, Mickey?
Yeah, I have a question for Eric, but I think he,
I'm just over wiping my allergy nose.
okay. So this just a geology question. Some of these intercepts, historic intercepts, are really high grade, which means there's more than chalcopyrite. There's got to be a bunch of chalcocite in some of this stuff, and that's pretty unusual in skarns. And so is this secondary chalcocite? Is it digenite? What is it? Why would it be in a skarn?
Very good question. And now you kind of got me stumped a little bit, because yes, it was chalcocite. That was responsible for their 35% copper, because chalcocite's 45% by matrix, I think.
I think it's 38, actually.
Yeah, well, let's see, you got me there. But yeah, so they really went after the chalcocite. But the interesting thing about this skarn is some of the chalcocite looks to be supergene, and the fact that we have enough copper oxide, there's enough turquoisey, the blue greens that are out there to indicate that it has experienced some erosion and some downward movement of supergene waters. But a lot of this chalcocite looks like it's primary, and especially when you start to drill into the endoskarns, because there you would not expect chalcocite to be a part of an endoskarn. It's clearly it's hypogene. It's definitely primary in those skarns. So if you use that as an analog and you say, okay, well, maybe the chalcocite that came up and attacked these limestones isn't all just secondary, it could be primary. And then the jasperoids themselves are very interesting in the fact that they are not ferrocrete. They are not something that is supergene at all. They're hypogene as well. They're just a spent fluid. There's nothing left. They're acidic. They're high iron. They're probably pH 2 or 3. They're very acidic, and they eat every single rock type out there, leaving relics in this jasperoid. So it's something to chase, because the grades can be quite impressive. Gold grades up into the 10, 15 grams in the jasperoid, and copper grades up to 24%. So it's a little bit of a unique skarn, but every skarn is different than the next one you're going to encounter. So this is a little bit of an intrigue for us, but it's a fun one to play with.
So you have one slide there. You've led me into another observation or a question, showing the three types of ore and where they go. And so the high grade silica jasperoid stuff goes to Golden Sunlight. That makes sense. Then you've got ore that goes directly to a smelter, which I think would be the chalcocite, chalcopyrite stuff. And then you've got stuff that goes to Phillipsburg, where there's been a mill forever and ever, operating mill. So when this was in production, did they use all of these sources of where to send stuff, or and if so, where's the smelter?
Well,
Across the pond?
they did use all three. They used all three streams. So they did do a flotation concentrate of anything. I believe it was less than 2 or 3% copper. And so they shipped it to the smelter, and the smelter that they shipped it to was in China.
Yeah.
And so they had, with those kind of grades, they were just whole oring the chalcocite, or what they could take out that was just black. You literally can almost see the miners going in there and going, the boss going, see that black stuff? Drop it. And that'll go direct ship. So they crushed it and shipped it. Then the other material was shipped down to Peaburg, and they floated that as a concentrate. And then all of the oxide ore that didn't have a lot of copper in it was shipped to Golden Sunlight.
Is Golden Sunlight still operating?
They are operating right now. They're doing I guess the usual sort of slow close down. They're not mining any hard rock, but they're reprocessing all the old tails and a lot of the old dumps that still have enough material in them. So they're just reprocessing what they have, but they're still active. They still have an oxide mill in operation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, I've got one last question for you. I guess Warwick, what is it that will make or break your stock in the next 12 months?
Ooh, great question. Look, I think there's a bunch of catalysts here. One being drilling here. As I kind of laid out, if you look at some of the comps, right? We had success drilling back in 2021. We ended up being the #1 performing gold stock globally that year. If you look at something like Hercules, I mean, their stock was trading at 20 cents. They drilled there'd been 300 drill holes that were shallow. They drilled a deep one. They hit the porphyry. The stock went to $1.60. It was $1.68, I believe it was.
So if it's one of these 17 holes that you're drilling this summer,
it can do incredibly well off the back of that. Yeah, without doubt. But that's only one of the catalysts. I mean, the other one is obviously the transaction at Palmer. Getting a transaction there brings in, a significant amount of equity for the company. That's going to be a huge catalyst as well. JVing out the other projects can be catalysts as well, because they'll be drilling and spending money while we're retaining equity in that. And then future M&A, right? If Palmer's out the door and we're sitting in that roughly $15 million cash range, and we've got $25 million in equity, and we decide to go and pick something else up as well, that can be a huge catalyst as well. So it's catalyst rich this year for sure. With a group,
but also, I imagine the market disappointment if you don't hit in these 17 holes what you hope to hit.
You know what? For where we're sitting today, with a cash balance, with an equity balance, yes, you always want to drill and hit on all your holes. I think we'd be hard pressed to drill 17 into this area and not get some joy. That would be a first for Madison. It carries an awful lot of grade. Now, drilling down to the porphyry is going to be a different thing. That's going to be new for us, but the risk reward ratio there is incredibly high, and those shots are taking.
And there's 6 of those, right? Is that right? 6 holes. Yep.
Correct. Yep.
All right. Good stuff. Well, the stock seems incredibly cheap now, historically. Sitting on a great asset with 15 million in cash, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really does. I'm just asking myself, low market cap, lots of interesting results. It really is a story that hangs together. So are we missing anything? Is there anything that worries you guys that we haven't talked about?
What are the things that keep me up at night? I'd like to get the transaction done on Palmer. That obviously takes some work. That's something I'd like to get done. That's probably what keeps me up at night. I don't worry about the drilling, because I know Eric and the team are bright and hardworking, and they will take the best shots. Those shots will be what they will be. We've had great success there in the past. I'd love to see us hit in the porphyry. And either God put the porphyry there or he didn't. That's going to be one of those two things, right? So we'll take those shots. So that doesn't keep me up at night. The transaction probably keeps me up at night because that's the work that I have to focus on and get done. And then from there, the world's your oyster at that point.
What are the odds of that transaction happening in this calendar year?
High.
Okay. Great answer. Okay, I think with that, I think we'll let you guys go, and just the panelists that are still here, we'll just stick around for a few minutes to discuss, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen,
we'll let you guys go.
I appreciate you, gentlemen. Matt, Ed, and Lau, first times meeting you guys, so nice to meet you. Doug, it's always great to see you. Byron, same as well. Nick, nice to see you again. And Lawrence, appreciate you guys very much. Mickey, good to see you.
It was a pleasure to meet all you
Take
guys.
care, okay?
It was a great presentation. Yeah, so
Yeah, thanks
so
very much. Thanks.
Thank you very
Cheers,
much.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Okay. All right, so what are your thoughts? But
What's the offer?
I mean, mute Ed. He's having a different conversation. Yeah. So what are your thoughts?
I'm concerned with the number of shares outstanding. That's a lot. 220 million shares. They've got some warrant overhang, but that looks like that's going to be resolved within 6 months.
Yeah, it's a three
If it
times.
was my
current
company,
stock
I'd
level.
roll it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, do a reverse split.
Yeah. Because otherwise, no one's going to be excited about a 20, 30 cent stock where you maybe have maxed out your market cap. Now, if they hit porphyry, good porphyry or high grade skarn, that could change, but way too many shares for my liking.
I just bought 20,000 shares. That's why I was on the phone trying to make it.
So I think Ed likes it. Ed likes it. That's a good sign. Okay. I mean, it's a compelling story. You got to admit, with so much cash on hand, well, at least for me, it seems like with that, so much cash on hand, and if that transaction occurs, actually, Lawrence is trying to come back in, so let me let him back in. I think he's coming. But, with that transaction as potential too, I mean, they could have more cash than its market cap.
I want to reiterate what I said earlier. Is a couple of years ago, I mean, I really liked Madison surface, and everything below was sort of undefined, and they were just working on the basic geology, and the rest of the company had a story to it, but it was all over the map, and that's kind of what what gave me pause a couple of years ago when I was looking at this company. Then, like I said, it's Rip Van Winkle. I woke up and, okay, they've cleaned it up and it's a much nicer story now. I really like the story. I absolutely agree with Mickey regarding the number of shares. I mean, if they drill through solid freaking gold right now, all of that news would get lost in 240 million shares, And I don't know how fast you can do a rollback, or if you want to do it. I mean, if you're going to do a rollback, do it soon, get it done, and then release your good news, in July or August. I mean, you drill now, you send it off to the chemist and everything else. I mean, you're not going to get your results back till, July anyhow, August, I don't know. But if you had it, I'm sorry, if you spread it over fewer shares, I mean, good news will just do a lot more for you with fewer shares, I think. And I think, this is a really good news story, 17 holes, 6 deep holes, you're going to find something. I mean, it's, you're going to be able to say something.
I have a difference of opinion on that, guys. I think the liquidity is good in these days where, you got a lot of institutions out there trying to compete for buying stock. And if, they look at a stock and it's illiquid and it's, 50 million shares, they might walk away from something like that. Right. But what I like about this company is that this situation is, that the Hercules discovery recently sort of sheds new light or sheds new light on this model of looking for the deep porphyry. And I like that that they don't know everything about this, because in districts like this, you have they've been picked over and drilled to death. And this one has been drilled to death too, but it's good that there's still some mystery about what's going on here, what's going on there, that that really needs, I think that really needs some closure. I think they got a good shot, at finding, at least getting some good results anyways, good grades.
I mean, the good thing is, so basically you're saying the trade-off between having so many shares outstanding is, number one, people look at a stock that's trading, look on the US, the OTC, it's 12.5 cents, and you're thinking, most investors look and they think that must be not a good stock if it's trading so cheaply. And if they did a reverse split, it would change that dramatically. The upside, as Ed is saying, as I understand, is the fact that their average volume on the OTC is 323,000 shares a day. Is that right? Am I understanding that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think what really counts is not so much the shares, of course, but it's the market cap. And this is a very, very low market cap stock. So if something happens, people won't buy in 100,000 share blocks, they'll buy in million share blocks. It's the same thing. I'm not worried about the number of shares, although I agree, it's better, less is better. But what I'm interested in is how long their cash will last. Sounds like quite a while. So there's not going to be a private placement anytime in the future, which is certainly the way I prefer to go into these stocks. But I buy this one.
Yeah, and that's why I like the 12-month question. What's going to make or break it in 12 months? Because obviously they're not going to need to raise cash no matter what for the next 12 months. So we don't have to worry about share dilution on that standpoint. But is there something that can change the nature of the stock, their part? And it sounds like there's a lot of things out there that could. Hopefully one of these 6 drill holes, and like that would be a huge pay dirt, I guess.
Sorry, man. Or even if they just sell Palmer, right?
Right. Okay. So amongst the ones we've,
I think I like the management. I mean, known Warwick for some time, haven't been in touch with them, and Eric is an impressive guy, it seems to me. So,
well, he passed all the questions from our experts, so that makes me happy. Like he knew the answers. He wasn't digging around. So, okay. All right. Well, good. Well, once again, guys, thanks for joining us. Some guys obviously had to drop off a little early, but I appreciate you taking the time today. And we have some more scheduled coming up, and I'll be sure to send you out notifications for those, and hopefully you can join us for those as well.